Format this week, we have an extra special New York City Marathon edition of the Zach Clark Show. We filmed these episodes at the Marathon Expo in New York City on Friday. There's going to be a little energy, buzz, background noise in the air because it was done kind of in this open air expo where everyone is super pumped. And, you know, these four conversations, we're going to roll them right into one another. They're inspiring. They're heartwarming. They tell human stories that we all deserve to hear. Luke, Shawn, and Andrew are all folks who are in sobriety and we're running as a part of the Release Foundation team. And then we're so fortunate enough to have the CEO of New York Roadrunners, Rob Simmelkjaer, stop by. And the work he's doing with that organization is unbelievable. I mean, they are just helping so many people through their charitable efforts. And so, look, the New York City Marathon is my favorite day of the year, and it's not because I run it every year and I cross the finish line. It's because of the stories that come out of that day, the stories leading up to that day, and we're proud to highlight some of them in this episode. We hope you enjoy. All right, what's up, everybody? We are here with one of my all-time favorite humans in the entire world, Mr. Andrew Schwarz. Andrew Schwarz is annoyingly nice. He's just annoyingly nice. He's just one of these guys that when you meet him, you have no other choice but you have a friend. Andrew, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for asking me to be here. I'm like thinking about all the times I've been at this expo with you, without you, just how far we've come.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I want to get into the marathon stuff, but I got to start with so you're sober how many years now?
November 10th is going to be 8 years, which is wild to think about.
So I met you like 7 years ago, is that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Probably more than that, a little bit more than that, yeah.
So 8 years ago, October, what was going on?
It was right.
You were drunk, I know that.
I was hammered.
Yeah.
And doing all sorts of opiates and pills. And I mean, I like to, I was like Hunter S. Thompson is what I liked. I had the uppers, downers, screamers, laughers, all in my pocket ready to go.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, around Halloween that year, my buddy Johnny O passed away of an overdose.
Okay.
He like came into the program and then went back out. And like first one he went, done.
Heroin.
Yeah. And
this is a high school buddy or just someone?
Yeah, it's a high school buddy. Yeah. And that sent me in a tailspin, dude. And I was like already like really struggling. But when he died, I went on a bender. I broke up with the girl I was dating right after the funeral.
Yeah.
I was emotionally shot. And my buddy got married in New Orleans. And I went down there and blacked out for like 4 or 5 days straight. And missed my flights.
What is that? I mean, New Orleans, blackout, Bourbon Street. What is that? Is that what does that look like?
I mean, it's supposed to look fun. It's supposed to look like a party.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Okay.
It was not. It was not a party. I was in such a dark place. Like, calling my parents, I don't know what I said, my brother, my ex-girlfriend at the time. It was ugly. It was really dark.
Yeah.
And, like, I ran out of drugs when I was down there, so I'm running up and down Bourbon Street in a tuxedo, like, trying to cop. It was not pretty.
Yeah. So I want to go. Okay, so then that 4 or 5 day bender, and then how do you end up in treatment?
I work in a family business, and I went into work Monday morning after my bender, and like this was not the first time that my family has seen me off the rails. And my dad and my brother took me out to breakfast, and they said, "Hey, we think you should get some help." And I literally said, "Yo, what took you so long? You know, like why was this it?" And that was on Monday, and by Wednesday I was in treatment at Karen in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I was trying to leave by Friday.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I know you well. And I
Yeah.
know your story. And real talk for a minute here. You say my family, which family means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but you are adopted, right? And can you, so in our work at Release Recovery, the work we do, and I feel like it's almost like now worse than ever, a high percentage of our folks that we help are adopted. And so we try to get into some of that stuff here on the show to highlight that wasn't your choice. It was just you were born into it. And I think you've made strides to meet your birth family. But can you talk a little bit about your experience being adopted in hopes of maybe like inspiring someone else who's listening to this, that journey, what that has meant to you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think like a lot of things in our lives growing up, we don't really know what affects us until we like come to terms with it and have to do the work, right?
Yeah.
So my brother's 6 weeks older than me. He's from Santiago, Chile.
Yeah, the math does not add up.
No, the math doesn't add up. And he, you've met my brother, like he's dark skin complexion, complete opposite of me. So we knew growing up that I was adopted. And like, it wasn't until middle school that I really felt out of place in my family. And I never felt comfortable in my own skin, like ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that does relate to adoption, but I think a lot of that also relates to like addiction, right? I feel that when you talk to anybody in recovery, they oftentimes don't feel comfortable in their own skin. But the adoption thing was...
When do you know, like, okay, so let's go dial back. Do you know at 8 years old? Do you know at 5? Is it like
I
something?
think at 5.
Okay.
Yeah. At 5 is when you know, like, you're like, oh, my brother doesn't look like me. My brother doesn't act like me. Like, at 5 is when you realize, hey, I'm adopted.
Mm-hmm.
We were always brought up, like, told that we were adopted. And, like, my parents embraced that. Like, there was a poem on my parents' wall that was like, not bone of my bone, not blood of my blood, but you're my son, or something like that. So we always knew that we were adopted. But because you don't know how that affects you until later years in life, I don't think I ever associated like my journey with adoption until later in life. But look, I mean, when you take someone from their biological family and plug them into another family, there is going to be an emotional response to that.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, I was incapable of explaining my feelings and incapable of understanding how that felt.
Yeah.
And because of that inability, I thought drugs and alcohol were the way. Like when I found Adderall, Xanax, pot, booze, I was like, this solves all the problems.
Yeah, it works till it doesn't.
Oh my God, it works so well. It worked really well for a long time.
So at 5, you know you're adopted. You have this brother that is 6 weeks older, or younger.
Yeah, 6 weeks older.
And so your parents, what they like went back. How does? I mean, I don't know much about the adoption process. Forgive me for my ignorance, but is it kind of you went back to back, like they went back to back?
Yeah, so they put in multiple applications because you never know when this is going to happen, right? And my parents found out about me first, and I was on Long Island, so they got me first.
Mm-hmm.
And about a week later, they found out about my brother and had to fly to Santiago, Chile to pick Ben up.
Unbelievable.
And then they were back home in New York with 2 kids. I mean, my brother was at the time probably like 3 months old. I was, a month and a half behind that. So, yeah, wild experience for my parents. And, dude, like, I can't even imagine for them, first of all, how big of a blessing it is for them to, like, finally have kids. But also how nerve-wracking it would be to one day basically wake up with 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
At least when you're pregnant, I would imagine, like, me and my wife are not pregnant, but I would imagine that 9-month process, there's a lot of growing and figuring out and planning when these adoptions kind of happen. Yeah, they put in the applications, they didn't know,
Ben is so chill. I mean, Ben is a legend, so it's hilarious. We were on your bachelor party. I guess it was this summer, like late whatever. The years flying by. But anyway, and you guys are like, there's so much love there, and it's so special, and you guys share, like, it is a true brotherly love. Like, there's no bullshit between you guys, adopted or not. And, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, he probably had to see you in high school kind of be who you were, right? Like, he was more on the reserve side, and you were out there, like, crashing cars and shit.
Yeah, he was known as Andrew's brother forever, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that had a difficulties and a little bit of a pride to it too. Like, yeah, I was the bad boy in high school, you know, and I can't imagine that it was easy for him because he would see me getting in fights, crashing cars, like the ultimate knucklehead. But I think he always knew I had his back, and I think that, you know, like, I remember one kid, like, call him Indian or, like, said something to him, and I, like, ripped this kid's throat out. I was, like, really upset, you know? But yes, brotherly love nails it right on the head.
And I'm just, so back to the adoption thing, and maybe this question resonates with you, maybe it doesn't. Like, did you blame yourself? Did you blame your birth parents? Did you ultimately forgive yourself for being adopted? Was it not like that for you? Like, I'm very curious about, like, you're very proud of it now. And, like, for me, when I met you, it kind of came up, you know, 6 months or a year into us knowing, and I was just like, oh, that's cool. And it was like past the salt.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I grew up in a loving family and never wanted for anything in my life, it's hard for me to say, like, I drank at it or I resented my biological parents. And I think that speaks to who my parents are, right? Like, my parents are so open and honest and loving that it was never a thing. It was never traumatic for me to explain adoption and for me to be proud of that fact that I was adopted, you know? And I think there is a level of pride that I've always had in, yeah, because it's a story, right? Like, it's not everybody has that experience. And then, look, as time went on, it got weirder and weirder, if we're being real, right? Like, I think in high school, I started to realize my abandonment issues through going to therapy and through talking to a psychologist and learning that, like, adopted kids in general have higher rates of ADHD and anxiety. And around then is when I understood that there is some trauma associated with not growing up with my biological family.
Right.
And I was always way more curious than my brother was. I don't think I would have ever sought out my biological family because I don't think I had the wherewithal to do it. Like, I was so scared when I was drinking and drugging and filled with fear that, like, I wouldn't want to have had that scar ripped open. Like, it's really...
Well, you avoided it probably, right? I mean, like, you just...
Yeah, I avoided talking about it. I avoided thinking about it. It was very much like, you know, stuff that emotion inside.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because it's like, you know, I've talked about it. Like, I just went to On-Site, and it's like this, like, everything leads back to family. As much as we want to deny the fact that, like, we are products of our environment and products of the way we're raised and products of who we are as, like, infant children, you know, for you were 6 weeks into your life, into your existence on this planet, like, scooped up by another set of parents who are wonderful, and I know them, and I love Gary, and, like, you know, like, it's they're angels for what they did for you, but that still doesn't mean that you're not going to feel those things later in life.
No, for sure. And I think
romantically, like, all your relationships, right? You know?
Every relationship is affected by the adoption. And, like, for a long time it was, I didn't know how to have difficult conversations. I would withdraw often, and I was a chameleon because I wanted to be loved by everybody. And until I started doing the work, I didn't know why I was the nicest guy in the world, right?
Right.
And I think, like, sometimes that, as endearing as it is, it could be a character defect too, right? Which is like, you don't always have to be the nicest guy. When you're running a business or you're having difficult conversations, it's important to have boundaries and understand why my innate default is to be the nice guy, right?
Yeah. We've turned out all right, and that's the result of your recovery. Before we move on, I'm going to ask one last question, and, I want this to land the right way, but would you adopt a kid? You just got married, or is that something that you are passionate about doing, or is it something that you're trying to leave behind, or like, what is your current energy around?
No, it's an emphatic yes. I mean, me and Molly have spoken about it before, right?
Amazing.
Like, look, even knowing my biological family, would have been fine in that family too, right? But my biological mom, who is an amazing person, wanted me to have a better life than she thought she could provide at 19, dealing with the struggles she was dealing with at the time. There are a lot of kids out there that are in foster homes that are adopted out of really terrible environments, and those lives are saved by the parents that adopt them. And
I was hoping that was going to be the answer.
I mean, absolutely yes, dude. I mean, for sure. And that's not an easy journey at all. And the older the kid is, like, the more difficult that journey becomes, right?
Yeah. So shifting gears, we are here at the New York City Marathon Expo. We're both running this weekend. We left the earlier conversation kind of like you were in Karen, you went to treatment, and then you moved back to Connecticut, and you were going to meetings in Yorktown Heights. And at some point in that journey, I guess it was Amy Durham or someone from Karen connected us, and we became fast friends. I don't remember, dude. How did I put you in a headlock and get you to do the first marathon? Did I just kind of tell you that you were doing it, or?
Yeah, it was simple as that. We had like 6 bibs, I think, at the time for Runwell.
Yeah.
And you were like, Schwarz, you're running the marathon this year. Like, get ready. And that was 8 months from the start line. So I had no excuses to get out of that. And I ran my first 5K was it was called the Frozen Penguin in Riverside Park. And look, dude, I was a big boy. Like, even when I got sober, I was like, so.
You're good.
So, yeah, you told me. You said, Schwarz, you were running the marathon this year. One of my favorite photos of us is us on the bus ripping a selfie before the start line.
Those
Crazy,
were back
dude.
in the days, man. Those were back in the days. And so how do you, like, that person, because it's one thing to get sober, and then it's another for me. The Andrew Schwarz I'm sitting across from is not the Andrew Schwarz I met 7.5 years ago. I mean, you're a completely evolved human being. You're a completely changed human being. What has that journey been like? I think we focus a lot on kind of like the war stories and the Hunter S. Thompson, vision we have of ourselves. But like what does the last 7 years look like for you? Or 8 years?
I mean, chop wood and carry water, right? Like, I think, first of all, there are people put in our lives that transform you. Like, the first was like my mentor in AA, right? Like, I was looking for the perfect guy, and like Brian the Beard was put in my life, and this
Brian
guy,
the Beard. Shout out Brian the Beard.
this guy took me through and taught me how to embrace myself.
Yeah.
And taught me how to be calm, and taught me how to explain emotion. And my therapist, Ed Sage, like, checking in with him weekly for 2 or 3 years to figure out how I was feeling and what I was feeling, and learning healthy coping mechanisms for life, right? Like, for so long in recovery, for so long in addiction, I had no idea how to deal with any life situation whatsoever. So when you get into recovery, you're like, all right, well, your only coping mechanism is taken away now. Go deal with it, right? Mm-hmm. So we go to meetings and we talk to therapists. That journey has been hard.
Yeah.
I mean, like, getting to know who you really are, who your real friends are.
That's the crazy thing about therapy. I mean, when I think about therapy, it's really like, because people will bitch and say I didn't have the right therapist, or like, the only excuse people have to not do therapy is they just don't want to face the truth about themselves. They don't actually want the knowledge. They don't actually want to change. I'm convinced of that because I've had multiple therapists. They've all been fine. They've all been really good, actually. But at the end of the day, I get out of therapy what I bring to it.
For sure. I mean, you can't go in and think, hey, Ed Sage, solve my problems, right? It's like, how vulnerable are you willing to get? Are you willing to open up about your trauma, your feelings, your emotions, your relationships? I mean, the majority of my therapy over the year has been talking about how I show up in relationships, who I want to be, and who I have been in the past. And that's the most rewarding type of work I can do, is showing up, figuring out how I could be a better husband, how I could be a better friend. Like, you and I have gone through difficult situations, and like, I've gone to therapy with those conversations about like, hey, why am I feeling this sort of way?
Yeah.
How do I show up better? How do I explain what I'm thinking and feeling? How do I explain that I'm hurt to another man? No one wants to talk about that stuff. How is my adoption and my relationship with my biological family impacting my life today? Right? Like, I mean, I think kind of like what we touched on is in the adoption thing is like, because you're so young and you don't know how it affects you, then later in life something happens where your biological mom reaches out and there's other trauma. Like, dude, my biological mom reached out and introduced me to my biological dad. My biological dad was like, yeah, I would love to meet you. And then he disappears.
Yeah.
And like, I was 21. You know, that is traumatizing because I knew how that felt.
Well, I think as men, like you touched on it, right? Like as men, we shove that shit.
Oh my God.
And
dude,
we are scared to talk about that. And that's why I always like, you know, it's like people ask me what animal I would be. It's like I would be an elephant, right? Like don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Like don't mistake my vulnerability for weakness, right? And so like and you and we in our relationship is just this beautiful testament to what can happen when two men are fucking honest with each other. And that's like, you know, a 7-8 year relationship. Like, relationships are hard, man. And if we weren't willing to kind of like, whatever, like talk about the way that we were feeling, we wouldn't be sitting here today. And that's just the truth of it, you know?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, that's definitely true. A couple years ago, I think, like, we were in a difficult spot, and I didn't really know how to navigate that. And so, like, I let my foot off the gas with you and, like, took a little space to think about it. And then to go back and, like, look at my actions and talk it out with my therapist, like, what relationship do I want with you? And figuring out how to get there and having those honest conversations to get there. That's so rewarding.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, right? Like, those are only things that, like, I've done with my family because I know I'm stuck with them, right? Like,
right.
So to do that with a friend, and since then, multiple friends, right? Because, like, life happens and weird stuff happens, and so, like, those conversations are pivotal in relationships and are either going to make or break it. And that's okay, right? Relationships disappear, and, like, that's okay. But I think we both wanted this to work, and that's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, dude. And it's all the shit we learned in recovery, and it's all the stuff that I feel like, you know, they talk about when you first get sober, this fourth dimension of reality that you're going to end up living in. And it sounds like total cuckoo, like out there in space kind of stuff, but it's the truth. Like, a lot of people will walk through life and never have the ability to have an honest conversation because they didn't grow up in a household where that was okay. And for me, I grew up in a beautiful home. We talked about a lot of things, but like our feelings were not always front and center. And so having to learn that later on in life and how to navigate, conversations with my friends, like it feels so gross. But at the end of the day, it's one of the more rewarding things I get to do.
What is the fourth dimension for you?
It's what we're doing right here, bro. It's running them. I mean, dude, you talk about, so look, we had some luck. So Andrew is a board member of the Release Foundation. He's a legacy board member, which basically means I called him and said, dude, we're going to start this nonprofit. You're going to be on the board. And like a good sober man, he said, okay, fine. It was actually an emphatic yes. And at the time, we had we were fundraising through another organization called Runwell, which Andrew mentioned, and we had an opportunity to acquire them and their bibs to the New York City Marathon, which at the time was like 10 or 15 bibs. And
I think it was less than that, dude.
We
it was
were
like
running.
7.
I have one of the first pictures, which I'll share. And we were running in bad gear, and it was just a bootstrap effort. And tomorrow at our shakeout run, we're going to have, a couple hundred people. We have 100 people running the marathon. Our goal is to raise $1 million. Like, it's a special, special thing that we've created. And the fourth dimension of existence to me is I know this isn't me, and I know this isn't you. Like, we're not that powerful. This is like the collective energy that we've put out into the world that people have been attracted to, and now they fly the Release flag. And that's what the running community and recovery community both do really well.
I mean, that's so true, right? 7 years ago, being here with Runwell, I mean, the whole thing is... it's magical when you look back at it.
How many marathons have you done?
This will be my 6th marathon, my 4th New York. Well, I had 1 year I didn't finish in 2019.
Was that the first?
No, that was the 2nd. Yeah, that was brutal.
Dude, all right, so we got to stop for a second, talk about 2019. This guy I see it. So for those of you that run the marathon, half the battle is managing your energy. And I just remember that year, I learned pretty early on in running this thing that you got to go slow to start. And I saw this guy pass me, screaming out music, running way faster than he's capable of at mile 4.5. And then I was not surprised to find out that he did not finish. When did you explode that year?
Right over the Queensboro Bridge, 16, done.
Legs, just mind, body, just not doing
No,
this.
legs wouldn't move.
Yeah.
I cramped up and it was brutal. It was, I mean, that's one of those pivotal moments too, right? It's all right, I didn't finish the marathon. Am I going to lean in? Am I a fat idiot for trying to run the marathon? Or do you come back stronger with vengeance and learn how to run and learn how to fuel and learn how to be a better athlete and hire professional help in order to do that? And I mean, those are the decisions in life that we make.
Dude, I'm a total sicko. I've actually thought about if I cramp up or if something was to happen where I get injured, how I'm going to army crawl to the finish line. I've actually had that. I have that plan in my mind because it's my biggest fear, not finishing.
It was brutal. And I cried. When I stopped, Danny, my best friend, ran across the city for me to be for him to be my shoulder to cry on.
Yeah.
It was amazing, truly inspiring.
Yeah.
To have a guy again, that I lean on in my day to day to be the homie, the guy, was there to be my person, which was awesome.
You're such an inspiration, dude. I mean, I don't know. I just feel having met you 7 years ago, seeing the man that you've I mean, I went to your wedding this summer, which was awesome. There was just so many beautiful moments that weekend, and Molly, your beautiful bride, is just such an ace, and good for you, and the perfect girl for you, because she's gonna keep you and she's gonna teach you to have a backbone, which we need.
Yeah, I think, look, that's that's one of the things. Like, look, she pushes me to be a better man.
Yeah.
And to set boundaries and like lean into who I am as a human being. And you talk about difficult conversations and like getting vulnerable to know somebody and opening up. Like, dude, when we met at Boston Marathon, like full circle running introduced me to my wife to grow together and like learn how to explain my history and learn that it's just a piece of who I am.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, Molly, look, she's a rock star. She is truly a badass.
So I'm going to finish with 2 questions here. One, you can answer them in any order. One is probably a little bit more serious than the other. The first one is, what do you tell the adopted kid, man, adult, whatever you want to call it, what do you tell the person who is adopted that is blaming their birth parents and cannot get sober, so they are drinking or drugging at that incident? What do you tell them? And what do you tell the lighter question? I'm giving you 2 choices here. You got to answer both, though. The lighter question is, what do you tell the person that says, I hate running, I'll never run a marathon?
I mean, look, I'll take talking to an adopted kid first, and the first thing I will say is you are enough. Because I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
I was always comparing my insides with other people's outsides. I hated myself and wouldn't forgive myself because I wasn't wanted by my biological family. I drank at people because if you were me, you would do what I do. If you were in my shoes, you would understand the way I feel. So I would say a couple things to that adopted person. And the first thing is, you are enough. Like, you are loved. You are supported. Go find your people. Go find your tribe. Because you are enough. And second of all, look at your relationship with drugs and alcohol. If you were put on Adderall at 14, look at that. Don't use I got a script from a doc as your pillar to stand on. All of these drugs that were given by doctors, yes, they may be beneficial, but what I learned is I'm a much better human being off of them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to college at Landmark College in Vermont for ADHD and learning disabled kids, there were a lot of adopted kids there. And I think, like, we treat our feelings with substances. Look at your relationship with drugs and alcohol and know that you are enough. For the person that hates running, just go out there. I mean, right now, I got my brother-in-law running.
I hate running. I'm never going to do a marathon. I hear that shit every day.
All
dude.
the time.
Yes.
All the time. I heard it today. I have flat feet. I can't run a marathon.
Yeah, I have flat feet.
Go out there and run.
That was, by the way, that was our producer, Jay. We're going to call him out right now. Says, I have flat feet. I can't run. Guy in high school was the Jewish Jordan. I mean, like, he got buckets. You don't get buckets with flat feet, so it's clearly just an excuse.
I will say go out there and go run for 15 minutes. The pace doesn't matter. You will get an endorphin and dopamine release in your head that you will end up loving. I was 300 pounds when I got sober. I didn't start running. I started on a bicycle, a stationary bike, and I built that up from 15 minutes to 20 minutes to a half hour to going on the elliptical to running my first 5K to my 10K, half marathon. My first half marathon was 3 hours and 53 minutes. I have now run a marathon in
Your
a shorter...
first half marathon?
Yeah, dude.
Oh, wow. I missed that. I spaced the half part. That's a heavy half.
That's a long half. Yeah, and I think my fastest marathon now is 3:45. So, like,
Nice.
that progress, dude, running's the best. There are days that I hate it, and there are days that I love it. But it's like recovery, man. Like, keep coming back. It just gets better.
I love running because I'm sitting out here like looking at this dude who's like 6'8" and like totally ripped, and I'm like, I am gonna smoke you tomorrow or smoke you on Sunday. It's like the great equalizer. Like, dude,
It's
the
true.
6-pack doesn't fucking work here. What's up, bro? How are you? What's going on? Yeah.
What's your goal for Sunday? All right, sick. You'll get it. Easy. Love it.
Crush it, bro. Yo. You good, bro? How are you, man? What's going on? Yeah, Sunday. Yeah. Good to see you, man.
What's up, brother? Good. Good to see you.
Yeah, so I think in some ways the answer to that question could be the same answer, which is you are enough. You want to start running.
Enough.
You want to start, so.
Get out there. Have some fun.
What? He wanted to fight. It's all love. I'm messing around.
That was hilarious.
That was hilarious. What's that? Oh, he got upset because I said I'm going to smoke him.
You
It's
think
all
he saw that?
I don't know. I think he was just saying hi.
Yeah. I think he was too.
It's all good. It's all love. Well, dude, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, dude.
Love you
it's
so
a
much.
pleasure. I
Yeah.
love you.
Appreciate
Seriously,
you and everything
you're
that
the
you do.
best.
Peace. All right, so if you've hung out with me lately or you've heard me lately, you know that I love my Doer jeans. That's D-U-E-R, Doer jeans. If you've ever put on a pair of pants or jeans that are super tight or super uncomfortable, or they're actually just a pain to walk around in, they take months to break in, you never have to do that again because Doer jeans have your solution. The thing is, they don't just look good, they have exactly what you need to move easily, from stretch and cool max to moisture wicking tech. They just look good and feel even better. Based out of Vancouver, Canada, Doer is a performance apparel brand that's best known for adding stretch and performance features into denim, so jeans. Although the brand sells all types of other products, I love their t-shirts. It all just rocks. Plus, 85% of the fabrics come from plant-based and recycled fibers. Not only does Doer look and feel great, but as you know, I support brands that I feel good supporting, and that's exactly what Doer is. Visit their flagship store in either Los Angeles or Denver, or you can shop online, www.shopdoer.com/Zach. Right now, our listeners get 20% off your first order when you use the code ZAC, Z-A-C, no H, no K, Z-A-C 20, or go to shopdoer.com/Zach. This deal is amazing and just in time for the holidays. Codes will be active until December 15th, 2024. It excludes Black Friday blackout period from November 22nd to December 2nd. So get on it now and get on it often. And trust me, you'll be thanking me later because these Doers rock. We are here with someone much faster than me, but is also sober. Luke Zirado, marathon. So Marathon to Sobriety is your Instagram handle, which is just so fascinating. And you said something to me just before we started filming. You were in the sober closet for 5 years. How did you get to, like, from this guy who's hammered and drinking around the clock to running like sub-3 marathons? I mean, I'm so fascinated by your story.
It's been a journey, as you know, Zach. Like, these things don't happen overnight. I was just struggling a lot, and I finally was just sick and tired of my own bullshit, and I finally owned it. And yeah, I knew I had to change, but the embracing my journey and embracing my new identity took a really long time.
Because of this, like the stigma or what you told your, I mean, you're Canadian.
Canadian, yeah.
How do Canadians view substance use disorder, alcoholism? Like,
Probably very similar to
Yeah.
here. Like, you know, it's I feel like we've come a long way for sure recently because of like leaders like you and a bunch of others. But I find that there's still a little bit of a stigma around sobriety. So that was probably my biggest thing was I thought there was something wrong with me because I couldn't drink like a normal person. Like I was ashamed, actually. I never talked about the fact that I was sober. I thought it was like a weakness, like you're weak because you can't drink alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something in some of the literature that I work with. It's like the greatest obsession of every alcoholic is to drink like a normal person. Like that line hits me right between the eyes because when I was out there, drinking and drugging, I was convinced that I was eventually going to be able to learn to drink like a sophisticated.
That's right.
Never happened.
That's right. We all convince ourselves that we could moderate and it'll be different next time. I won't cross the line next time. I'll stop at 2 or 3, right? That was me. I struggling for a long time, right? I'm half Italian, half French Canadian. So like I grew up with family who socialized a lot, drank a lot. So it was like part of my like culture to drink. So to think that I was going to be this sober person, I was like, there's no way. Like how am I going to live? How am I going to have friends? How am I going to meet people? Like how am I going to do that? All that sober? It was scary.
Yeah, all the lies we tell ourselves, right? And then on the flip side of it, you get a little taste of what is available to you in the sober life. But it took you. So let's backtrack. So you are how old now?
So I just turned 40.
Okay, so
so we're 80.
Couple
80. Yeah, that's right.
Gray-haired marathon runners here.
That's right.
And you haven't drank for how long?
So it'll be 8 years on December 31st.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So it's been a minute. Yeah, it's been good.
Okay, and so 8 years ago, December 31st or December 15th, what did life look like? Like what was going on in Luke Zirado's world?
So I think you asked a lot of my friends, people who knew me well, they would think that, there's nothing wrong with Luke. I looked good. I was in the gym, 5-6 days a week. I was I looked in better shape. Like I was jacked. I had way more muscles than I have now as a marathon runner.
Yeah.
I had a good job. I had a beautiful girlfriend. Like it didn't look like anything was wrong with me, right? But in the inside, I was definitely not very happy. I was definitely dealing with a lot of stuff, and it was just.
What is the stuff? Is it anxiety, depression, self-doubt, like
all of that?
Yeah,
all the above. A lot of anxiety, a lot of self-doubt, really insecure deep down. I had created this character where whenever I'd be out socially, I'd be like this crazy, standing on chairs, making speeches, life of the party, that it was eating me up inside because I was doing things, saying things to make people laugh or to get people to like me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't true to who I actually was.
Yeah.
And I was just complicating my life. I was just making my life hard. I was putting myself in really tough situations.
Yeah.
And then what really accelerated for me was that I got introduced to drugs. So it was no longer the 1 or 2 beers. It was that's not enough. There's this thing called cocaine that I got introduced to, and that just really accelerated things. And that's when it was wow, if you don't change, something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah, the drugs. For me, I'm people always laugh, but I say I'm grateful for drugs because they accelerated my bottom, right? Like they got me to a place very quickly that I don't think I would have gotten with alcohol. This camera, your little girl Luna is amazing, and she's ready to take down our cameras, which is a gift of sobriety.
Yeah,
you have this little beautiful girl with us here.
It's so special, honestly, Zach. I got sober before she was born, and it's by far my greatest thing that I've done for myself. To know that I'm not a perfect dad. I still have a temper. I have a lot of things that I need to work on, but I don't struggle with alcohol. And it just makes me more consistent. My bad days aren't as bad, and as a dad, that feels pretty good.
Yeah,
because I know what it's like. Because I had a dad who struggled a lot with alcohol. Yeah, and great dad, but he struggled with alcohol a lot.
Is he still around?
No, he passed away, 2014.
Alcoholism?
No, he had cancer.
Okay,
but he struggled a lot with alcohol, and we never talked about it as a family. So I just knew that I didn't want to put my kid through what I was kind of put through.
Yeah, it's so much talk about that, your family of origin and breaking the cycle, and is this hereditary? I don't really get caught up on is this hereditary, is it not? I think that some of us can be predisposed to to a substance use disorder or to addiction. But the fact that, your father struggled for many years and is no longer with us, but you have now, gotten such a beautiful testimony to him,
Exactly. You know what? Yeah, I think about him a lot, actually.
You do.
That he would just, be proud of what I've done. I feel like I'm doing something that I don't like. He probably wanted to do, but he couldn't do it for different reasons. So that makes me feel really good too, right? So yeah.
So you get sober. You just you wake like what is your moment of clarity? You wake up one morning, you say, okay, Luke, this party is over. I gotta stop.
So I was in therapy, like I mentioned. I knew something had to change, but I couldn't fathom sobriety. I was always with the intention of being a better drinker, right? Like we were saying, moderating better, all those things. So I was in therapy. We were really working on moderation, and then it was Christmas 2016 or just before that. A really bad night. Just really got into it. Woke up like this. I need to
on Christmas.
Just before Christmas.
Yeah.
So I went on Google and I found another therapist close by because I said I got to go see someone else. I got to get something else. So I sat down with this new person who saw me the same day, which was just a coincidence that I guess
miracle.
He had a miracle. Thank you. It was a miracle. We sat down and I was just fresh off this night. And within, 5-10 minutes of me talking, he looked at me straight in the eyes and he says, Luke, you can never be drinking again.
Wow.
And I was debating him in the moment. I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, giving him a bit of my backstory. And
dude, I've had people, I've gotten phone calls from people that I know, that I love, strangers, whatever, and I will go to the hospital and they will be in the hospital bed and they will be coming out of an overdose that could have killed them. And they will look me straight in the eye and say, I think I can safely do drugs.
Yeah.
I don't need to go to rehab. And that is the delusion. That's why this thing is so, to your point, you're coming off this night where you are clearly very embarrassed, filled with shame, and you're going to tell this therapist who is a professional, who knows what they're doing, that you can drink.
That's right. So I was debating him.
Yeah.
But then there was something about the conversation and just, I was at a point, we talk a lot about, being ready. You're not ready till you're ready. Because I had fucked up just enough.
Yeah.
And then I went back in my car after that session, and I couldn't stop crying. I could not stop crying.
Yeah.
I knew there was something that he said that was true. So that's when the kind of my mind opened up to not drinking. He put me into a couple group sessions through CAMH in Toronto.
Yeah.
Center of Addiction and Mental Health. I kind of saw what I needed to see. And then from then on, I said, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. But I had ego. I had a lot of things, and I did it on my own. I didn't do any programs. I literally raw dogged that by myself, and I made it way harder for myself than it probably needed to be.
Right.
And I did that for 5 years.
Because you kept it a secret.
Secret. Nobody knew other than, close family, close friends. Colleagues, nobody knew.
So when you, no one, when you weren't going out to the bar and getting on the tables and screaming, no one was asking.
Either I would not go. I was getting good at not going, which I think helped me stay sober. I kind of wasn't going, but then I'd make excuses. I'd say I can't drink because of this, because of that. I'm on whatever I would say. I would never come out and say, no, I've been, I'm sober or I'm not drinking. I never ever did that because I was just embarrassed. I never wanted, who wants to be sober, I thought.
Chris, what's up, bro? I'm saying hello. My buddy Chris just came into the eyesight, and he's one of we're talking to a bunch of our runners. You good, bro? You got your you're good, man. You look good.
Look at that smile. He's excited.
Yeah,
everyone's smiling.
Everyone's pumped up.
Everyone's so pumped.
Yeah. You going to finish?
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
I can't.
See you tomorrow for dinner.
Yeah, cool. You coming to the shakeout or no?
Oh, yeah, I'll be at the same.
Yeah, we'll see you. Party.
Yeah.
Later, bro.
I love runners, eh? They're just everyone's just so positive.
And dude, everyone's got a story. And so that was Chris Callahan who just stopped by here. And Chris is the brother-in-law of someone from our local recovery community who was adored and loved and, sadly ended up, losing his battle with mental health. And Will Hardigan was his name, and Will, I mean, he helped more people than anyone. And so Chris is running in his honor this year. And
Oh,
just,
beautiful.
Those are the stories, man,
That's
that we get to
amazing.
tell.
That's amazing.
You know, like yours.
That's amazing, man.
So, all right. So after 5 years, and then when does this whole? So, like for those of you who are listening, Luke has this amazing Instagram handle, which are two of my favorite things. It's marathons and it's sobriety.
Yeah.
And you're sober 8 years now. You're running all these marathons, but you're putting out this content that people seem to be really relating to. Like, when do you decide to go from, sober guy in the sober closet to social media influencer?
Yeah. There's something about like living in that shame and just not being proud of my sober journey. It was hard. I didn't like that. And there was something about the anniversary, I think, because it was right around the time I was hitting 5 years of sobriety. I had just picked up long distance running, and I had just trained a lot, and I had just qualified for the Boston Marathon. So I was kind of having a bit of a thought, and I was like, Luke, be proud of yourself for a second. You got sober, you made some incredible changes, you got into sport, running, you qualified for this big race. Like, be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
Be proud of yourself. So I was ready to let people know.
Had you run before you got sober?
No, not at all.
Wow.
I played a lot of sports, played hockey and different stuff, but I hated running.
Canadians
hated
are the best,
running,
bro. Canadians are sick athletes too. Like my buddy played Blake, Moynes. He's a hockey guy. Like, and they're just so nice and kind. But you get on the field with them, and they will rip your throat out.
So I had just qualified and all these things, and I was like, I'm ready to share. So I was like, how do I do that? So the scariest way I thought of doing that was to do it on LinkedIn. So at the time, I worked for a big global tech company.
Oh, you went straight to LinkedIn.
I went straight to LinkedIn.
He didn't even go to the IG.
I didn't even go to IG.
To the LinkedIn.
Went to LinkedIn, scared, like second guess myself, going back and forth, hit post, don't hit post. Because nobody really knew my office and my boss and all those things, right? With the whole corporate. Anyway, so I shared I did a 3-paragraph thing. I had a picture of my daughter on my lap holding my 5-year sober sign with the qualification of Boston. I hit post, didn't really think much. Woke up the next morning and it had just was getting shared, reshared on LinkedIn. And I woke up, I was like, holy, like I didn't expect that. I didn't do that to go viral. I just did that to get it off my chest, to like free myself from just get it out there.
Leave it to a sober alcoholic to go viral on LinkedIn to get their influencing career started. That's legendary, dude.
Yeah, so,
that is legendary.
And then after that, I was like, holy, there's something here.
Yeah.
There's people who were messaging me that I had never met, old friends, old teachers, a lot, like people related to what I was doing, either personally or through somebody. So in that moment, I was like, okay, I should probably document or share a bit about what I've been through. And I was like, what better way to do that than on Instagram? So I started just sharing, some of my story, but I incorporated running because I didn't want it to just be sober because I thought that would be boring. People would relate.
Well, dude, you were on it. I mean, you had it nailed. That's the shit we talk about all the time. Is if we're just talking about sobriety and we're just saying hey, like we're gonna be convincing other people that might need help that this life is boring and that we can't afford that. That's how we lose people.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, Zach. Exactly. So the running that I discovered on the journey, I just created this whole sense of like purpose for me. I started identifying as this sober marathoner, identifying as a sober dad, as a sober husband. It became part of my identity. It took me 5 years to form that identity. But it doesn't need to take anybody 5 years to do that. You could do that, a lot faster than 5 years. Mm-hmm. So that was another part of the reason why I was so excited to share, because I wanted people to, either be inspired or to learn from kind of my mistakes and to maybe look at things a bit differently and not look at sobriety as, like we're saying, boring, for losers, all these things. It's actually a superpower. Like it makes me who I am.
Yeah.
Like I'm way more confident in who I am because of this journey.
Yeah.
Before, I needed alcohol to like talk to anybody. If I was sitting here with you, I'd be like, oh my God, I need to have some drinks before I come sit down with Zach. But now it's like, I've learned that kind of by showing up for myself.
So is it safe to say, I love all this and like in a lot of ways I'm grateful because even for me, the way that I try to share about it, it can get confused with some of this other stuff that I'm involved in, right? Like I was on reality whatever, but you're just a guy who has leaned into your sobriety, and it appears to me like your interest is just to let people know that they can do this.
Exactly. Because, look.
And that's going to be a lot more relatable for people might not relate to me. They're going to relate to you,
No, they can relate to you, Zach.
Okay.
100%
Okay,
they
good.
can relate to you.
Good.
And actually, there's something. So I'm really excited, obviously, for a lot of reasons to be chatting with you, to be running with you. But I specifically remember watching your show. I'm a huge fan of The Bachelor.
Okay.
My wife and I, we
Amazing,
just love it. It's our garbage TV.
I love it.
We love the drama. It's fun, right? It's a nice escape from reality.
Yeah.
So we watched the show, and I remember you coming out and talking about your story, about your sober journey. At the time, I was in the closet. So here I am watching this guy on TV talking about his journey. I was just like, holy shit. Like, I was thinking to myself, like, wow, that takes a lot of courage to do that. And I was just like, wow. And how confident you looked sharing that story and how you were like living that life. It was like, for me, it was like, I want to be proud of myself too, that I'm sober. So when I see people like you doing the thing, like showing up, owning it, having this great life for yourself, it's very inspiring.
I needed that today, man. Like,
No.
I forget, I forget that, like, because you know how it is. You tell your story so much and you do it so much, and then, like, to hear you sit here and say, like, I'm not trying to have a God complex here or say that I made you, but, like, if I gave you a little bit of a nudge.
You gave me that hope
to
that,
go.
Like, yes,
and
1000%.
then start this account, which now has, like, a couple 100,000 followers or whatever you have on social media, and all those. Like, you've saved some lives. It's safe to say.
You know what? And I've heard you say this before. It's not about the numbers.
Right.
It's not about the numbers. It's like one person. It
Yep.
truly is, right? It's like, I know I've had a couple people reach out to me like, I made a difference in their life. And Zach, we know you've done that X times.
Yeah.
It's an amazing feeling. And that whole like giving back, helping others fuels me. It gives me way more, I feel way more fulfilled in that process by connecting with people who are identifying with it, making change, than like, working in a corporate and chasing the dollar bills at a corporate thing, right? It just gives a lot of purpose, and it's helped me stay sober. Because as we know, just because we have X days doesn't mean, hey, we got it all figured out now.
Yeah.
We're golden, right? We still need to show up by like giving back, like it helps keep me sober, keeps me on the right path.
Yeah. So is this your livelihood? Is this your full time? Like, is this?
So it's not at the moment, but that is 100% a goal.
That's a dream.
You know, living in Toronto, it's really expensive, as it is New York.
Yeah.
Got a young family. The wife wants the house. We're just signing up. We're just closing on a bigger house, bigger mortgage. So it's scary. It's really scary. So right now, I'm doing a lot of things. I'm working full time. I got my coaching business. I'm doing my content. There's a lot of things that I'm doing. But
what's the coaching business? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I'm doing alcohol-free life coaching.
Okay.
So I do group coaching, and I also do one-on-one coaching, just to help people, find things within themselves, and just to give them that support and that encouragement.
I love it.
So I do it in group, and I do it one-on-one, and then the content is just
is that virtually, or are they coming to see you
virtually?
in person?
Everything's virtually,
Okay.
all on Zoom, and I'm meeting everyone on Instagram, and I also I have a run club that I lead in Toronto, called the Sober Strider Run Club.
Amazing.
That's been a huge, it's been an amazing thing, bringing people together who, very similar to you, who aren't really runners. They don't identify as runners. So just making it more inclusive, getting people together, and also socially. There's people in the U.S., we got people in Europe who are part of our club on Strava and show up. And that's given me so much life.
Unbelievable.
That's the highlight of everything I'm doing, I think, is the run club, and bringing people together and introducing them to this thing called running and how incredible it is.
Yeah, there's a lot. Look, there's a lot of ways that people kind of get and stay sober, and I don't judge. I mean, like, for me, like, I went to rehab for a long time, and then ended up in a 12-step fellowship, and that's a lot of what I still do today, and I've been somewhat open about that. But what I tell people early on is, like, when you're getting sober, you're trying to make a change it is very hard. And you did it alone for 5 years, which is you're a miracle.
No, yeah.
But the community is everything.
Community-
If you're, and the good news is there's more and more groups coming about that isn't just focused on, sitting in a church basement and talking about your feelings. Like
Yeah.
you're getting these sober folks out, or people that maybe want to get sober or sober curious.
Yes.
Starting to move a little bit, and that little action can prove to them that like maybe there's hope here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. I'm not here. You're not here either to convince anybody to
No,
be sober.
that
That's
doesn't
not our
work.
job.
It doesn't work.
Right? Exactly. It doesn't work. You need to want to make change for yourself. But if I can get somebody to look closer at their relationship with alcohol, reevaluate. I'm not saying go completely sober. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe just be more mindful of your drinking. That's a great thing. It's not. I don't look at it black or white. It's not sober versus not sober. That's not what it is. It's what works for you. For me, I know my truth. I cannot touch alcohol. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's easier to have 0 than it is to stop at 1 or 2 every once in a while.
Yeah.
So if I can just get people to just look at it a bit differently, that's amazing. That's an incredible thing. And maybe some people will hear our stories, hear your story, hear my story, and maybe they'll be like, you know what? Maybe I can't be drinking either, because what I'm doing to myself is not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting in more fights with my loved ones at work. I'm not bringing my best to the office. I don't feel good all the time. Those types of things are important to think about.
Yeah. No, dude, it's incredible. When did you know? I mean, you did the LinkedIn thing, and then obviously you went over to Instagram. When did you know that? Like, was it pretty immediate that you knew people were gonna because when the content kind of starts to go, it's a crazy feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a lot of, some people messaging me that they resonate a lot with my story, because what we see a lot with in recovery, and I have so much respect for everyone on the journey, right?
Yeah.
But especially those who've been through real adversity, like real rock bottom, and they're able to, course correct. Like, that takes so much courage and strength. Like, all the respect in the world. But for me, yes, I had a rock bottom, but it wasn't maybe as far along as some people. So that's what I thought there was maybe not missing, but not spoken about as much, as that people can make changes without making their life more complicated. Yes, I was into drugs. Yes, I hit very close to a bottom, but I still had a job. From the outside, I still looked normal. You know what I mean? So I wanted to really have people relate. And then when I saw people relating to that part of my story, that's when I knew that I wanted to keep sharing.
Yeah.
Keep sharing. Keep connecting. Because, yeah, it's great to see that come back, but really it keeps me on the path.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean, it's an unbelievable story. I think that, seeing someone like yourself, very well-spoken, very passionate, very enthusiastic, but also at the same time sharing this story, and I think about this a lot with therapy. It's like people will question why to go to therapy. And for you, it was that kind of that was your moment of clarity, right? You
Yeah.
got out of that session, and to think of you in your car in Toronto crying these tears,
Yeah.
is so powerful. And that's kind of the message that tells me, or tells the world, that you're worth it. You're worth
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
You're worth it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
on to bigger and better things. Sunday, first
Yeah.
New York.
First.
What is so we're talking to a real runner here, guys. We're not talking to a guy who's going to go out and pound a 5-hour marathon. So your best is like a 250?
250, yeah.
Okay, you've qualified for Boston. You've run 6 or 7 of these things. You got a little injury going on. What's
Yeah.
the plan for Sunday? Are you out there to enjoy it? Are
Yeah.
what is the deal?
You know what? So I'm going to obviously give it my best go, right? I'm always, we're always hard on ourselves. We
Yeah.
want to push the limit. But what I'm most excited about this time, because this is my 7th marathon, is to do it with a community of like-minded people, with release, and to have raised money. I have never done a charity before.
Yeah.
I was terrified to join, because I was worried I wasn't going to. It's a lot of money you got to raise.
Yeah.
It's a commitment.
Yeah.
So I'm most excited about to do it for something bigger than my time. Like at the end of the day, who cares about my time? I care. No one else cares.
Right.
But now this doing it with release, doing it for the recovery, people struggling, the message that it provides, that's what I'm doing it for. So that's what I'm excited about. But
You're going to feel something out there tomorrow, dude. And I'm sure you're going to come out of this weekend and you're going to go back to Toronto and you're going to start your own nonprofit. Or something's going to come of this, like something bigger, with your run club, because the energy at our shakeout run tomorrow morning, just in this conversation on the course Sunday, and then at our after party, you're going to feel something that you may not have felt before. So
I can't wait.
Buckle up.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait. And I'm obviously going to be there at the shakeout. I can't wait to run with the team and pick up the swag. And it's really electric, Like I can already feel it here,
Yeah,
just in the
it's the
expo.
best. Yep.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, dude, I'm sorry we don't have a little more time to dig deep into the nitty gritty, but we will get you back on. I appreciate you stopping by. Sitting here, the view I have, just so people know, is I am talking to Luke, but right over his shoulders, his beautiful wife and child, which is that's why the stories of recovery, they never get old. They never get old. So thank you for coming, and good luck on Sunday, brother.
Zach, thanks for everything you're doing, honestly. You're building an incredible community. You're doing a lot of good, and I'm glad that I was able to kind of hit one nudge maybe within you, to remind you the impact you're making. Because
Thank
you're
you.
saying, you're sometimes it feels like you're maybe on autopilot a bit, right? You're saying the story so much, and is it actually making a difference? 1,000% it is.
Thank you.
So I'm glad I was able to do that a little bit for you today. But thanks for having me part of Release. Thanks for having me here.
Dude,
thanks
likewise.
for inspiring me, man. You're
Yeah.
super down to
Thank
earth,
you.
and you're just a great guy. So
Thank you, brother.
Pleasure meeting you, man.
Good shit.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you,
man.
Luke. I have been harder and harder to impress and be a fanboy as life has moved on, but today's guest, or this segment, is a man that I am a fanboy of because of the organization that he is the CEO of, New York Roadrunners CEO Rob Simmelkjaer. After Release, New York Roadrunners is my favorite organization in the world. Rob, thanks for giving us some time.
Zach, it's awesome to be with you. And yeah, the only reason to be a fanboy of me is New York Roadrunners, because we have 250 plus people who are making this magic happen that we are all sitting in the middle of right now, the expo of the TCS New York City Marathon. So it's really great to be with you, and we love partnering with your organization and the cause that you have and the impact that you make. So I'm thrilled to be sitting down with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I was looking, so this is my 10th. I'm running, it's a decade. It's 10 New York City marathons for me. And I was looking at the picture of our charity team. The first year I ran, there was about 12 of us. And we have over 100 runners this year. And that's in large part because of your support and the entire organization's support. So we're grateful. This is your second marathon as CEO. More anxious, less anxious, better sense of what's going to happen, or
a lot better sense of kind of what's in store, day in and day out. You talk about drinking from a fire hose. I mean, this is such a massive event. It takes over the city of New York, which is a hard thing to do because this city is, the greatest city in the world. And so there's so much energy and attention around it, and obviously there's so many demands, not just on race day, but really for a week and change leading up to it. So yeah, last year I was just on a roller coaster, and I didn't even know what the next drop was going to be, what the next turn was going to be. Now I have a little more sense of it, but at the same time, it's still just a massive undertaking for our team. And I'm very much in awe of our team and of all the partners that we have in the city and beyond that help us make this happen, because it takes tens of thousands of people from all kinds of roles, from our staff to NYPD and fire and all the folks in the city that we need to put this on, to our partners and all the amazing things they do. You walk around this expo and the experience they're giving our runners at all of these booths to have an incredible time. And then there's our charity partners, our media partners. I mean, it just goes on and on. It really is a massive, massive undertaking.
Yeah, I always say for me, it's this is my New Year's Day. This is my yearly cleanse. I run the marathon, and I have a spiritual experience. And so for me, I know why the New York City Marathon is so so meaningful. Our organization hopes to raise close to $1 million for people that are struggling with substance use disorder or mental health. It's also just the one day, and you alluded to this, the one day of the year where I feel like New York City is aligned. There's no politics, even though there's going to be an election next Tuesday. Like, there's no politics, there's no race, religion. Like, everyone is cheering for those 50,000 plus runners. And so I know my why. For you, as such an accomplished person, having worked in media and an entrepreneur, why did you choose New York Roadrunners? Why did you come to this organization?
You know, in life, Zach, I think we're always looking for the perfect balance, right? Between work that gets us, the rewards we need from working, right? I mean, we all need to make a living. We need to put food on the table for ourselves, our loved ones, and all of that. But then we also want work that rewards us in other ways as well. Spiritual ways that make us feel like we're making a positive contribution and making, I know it's a cliche, but quote unquote, the world a better place, right? Doing something. And I had spent my whole career doing that. I mean, I worked in sports for a long time on the for-profit side. I worked in media, and it was close to that because sports makes people happy, right? And working on a broadcast of the Olympics or working on a new sports property, whatever, I knew it was good because I knew it was like entertaining people. But, it was still a for-profit enterprise, and we're trying to make as much money as we can, and there's nothing wrong with that. That was great. But I was still looking for that perfect balance, right, between something I loved, sports, and being active and running. I had run 2 marathons before I came here, New York
3
marathons.
now. We just did Berlin, for those who are listening.
Yeah. And so to join an organization like New York Roadrunners, which has this mission, right? We're a nonprofit organization. We have a mission to build healthier lives and stronger communities through the transformative power of running. You know about that better than anyone.
Yes.
I just thought, wow, what a perfect balance between the business skills that I've developed in my career that I can bring to a position as CEO around an organization like this, and my desire to really make an impact. And it's and also, by the way, in my home city, the city I was born in, where my family's been for many generations. So the ability to make that kind of impact generally, and then especially here in New York, it's just made it kind of a dream job for me, and it's been I've been really privileged to have it.
So I'm going to pivot to my purpose and my passion, which is I believe right now that we're in a loneliness epidemic, right? So when I think about overdose numbers and deaths by suicide, those folks, when we lose them, they're dying alone. And so much of what New York Roadrunners does is build community, which leads me to mental health. Having worked in sports for a large portion of your career, we're starting to see guys like DeMar DeRozan, who was an NBA star, talk about his mental health. And when you think of running, you immediately probably go towards the physical, right? Are you guys paying attention to mental health? Is it something that you're like? Can you speak to how Roadrunners approaches that? Because I feel like it's such a important topic in our world, obviously to me, but I'm just curious what you guys are seeing or hearing. Or
one of the first things I said, I think the first interview I gave when I was named CEO was with a reporter, and I talked about mental health and said that I actually really do believe that New York Roadrunners is a mental health organization.
Wow.
It's not exactly the right way to put it because we don't provide therapy, actual therapy. We don't have psychiatrists. We don't prescribe medication. We don't do any of the things that, people in the mental health industry do per se. But I knew from my own experience that mental health is the number one thing that draws people to our sport and to running. And I know, Zach, that if you and I walked around this expo and we asked 100 people, why do you run? I know the number one answer we would get in some form or other would be mental health. The stress relief,
If this is Family Feud, the number one answer is
it's the number one answer. I have no doubt about it. I know because I go around and asking people.
Yeah.
And so there's clearly a connection, right? And there's scientists who can talk about the mind-body connection and all of the, the endorphins and all the things we get that make us feel physically better by running. So there's that side of it. But then there's also the community side of it. And you mentioned the loneliness epidemic. And, the U.S. Surgeon General, right, came out and said that loneliness is a public health crisis in the United States. And it's killing people.
Yes.
It's really killing people. It's killing them in different ways. Maybe it's because they start becoming addicted to substances because of loneliness. Or, they get depressed and are at risk of suicide because of loneliness. And what we've seen is that a lot of people started running during the pandemic because there wasn't anything else they could do. Their gym was closed. They couldn't, do the things they were doing to stay in shape. So they started running. But they've stayed with it because of the communities that they've connected with. They've joined a running club, a crew. Their company or business has a little running team. Like they really have connected to other people through running. And you don't think of running as a team sport, right? You go out and you run the race yourself.
Yeah.
But you run together so many ways, and we run better when we run together as well. So I really think that both the physical and the mental side of it all come together when people run as part of a community.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like for me as someone who's been, I was a heroin addict and coming out of that experience, I had to find community, right? And I found that in my recovery community, and I found that in the running community. And it's my duty, it's my life's purpose to try and pay that forward. And I'll say, last year, you guys had asked me to participate in a panel, the lead up to Marathon Week, and one of the young men in the crowd hunted me down afterwards and told me some of his struggles. And our foundation was able to get him some therapy and get him some help, and he's doing a little bit better. And so we never really know, but I do know that you sitting here as the CEO of Roadrunners and saying this is really a mental health organization, I believe that, and I hope other people listening know that.
And you mentioned your history and what it meant for you to find a community to overcome your addiction.
Yep.
And there's another word that I use a lot when it comes to runners coming together, but I also know, I don't work in this space, but I know when it comes to addiction recovery is that word accountability, right? Having a community, a group of peers to hold you accountable, whether it's accountable to showing up for that training run, right? That's gonna help get you ready for whatever your goal is in running, a marathon you want to run, whatever, or the accountability you get when you're part of a group that's trying to keep each other sober, right? Trying to keep each other from relapsing. Like accountability is such an important part of life, and we get it from other people, and so that's why I'm such a fan of these communities that have come together, and there's so many of them that have actually combined addiction recovery and running, including yours.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's our approach to this whole thing is that we're not necessarily watching our watches. We're not necessarily competing for times. There are definitely run clubs in the city that do that, and we support them, and they support us. But for us, it's really about that connectivity. Because to your point, coming out of COVID, a lot of people started running, and I don't think they really understood that this is actually, like you said, a community, or can be a community event. So I know I'm the person standing between you and lunch. So. And you are incredibly busy, so I want to be mindful of your time.
All good.
But let's just talk about Sunday for a moment. You're going to be there. You're going to be at the start line. You're going to be wishing all these runners off. Assuming all goes well, which it will. I'm a positive guy. When your head hits the pillow on Sunday night, what do you want to look back on Sunday and feel? Like, what is your goal? What is your dream for the marathon?
I love that question, Zach. For me, it all first and foremost comes down to everybody having a safe day, right? We want everyone to have a safe day, a positive day, We put so much of our emphasis on the well-being and the safety of our runners. It's a huge sense of responsibility that we feel as we send 54,000 people across the Verrazano Bridge through 5 boroughs of New York and to finish in Central Park. So that first and foremost is what success looks like for me, is everybody who started, finishing, and those who don't finish for whatever reason, being safe wherever they are. So that's first and foremost. Then I think beyond that, Zach, there are so many stories crossing that finish line, and it's not possible for me to know them all. But they're all special and unique. And if I just grabbed 10 random people from this expo who are carrying bibs around, and I just put them in front of a microphone right now and interviewed them like you're interviewing me,
Yes.
I would find some incredible inspiration in every single one of the stories that's walking around this place. And so what I hope to do, and what I really hope our organization can do, is to get as many of those stories told as possible, because it's in the hearing of those stories that we inspire 50,000 more people to sign up and to want to run, whether it's run a 5K or a half marathon or a marathon. And that's such a big part of what we do, is that storytelling that leads to that inspiration, that leads to that next generation of runners. So I just want to know as many of them as I can. And I can only do that by, I walk around and just ask them sometimes why.
Yeah.
Why are you running?
So beautiful. And that leads perfectly into my last question, which you just ran Berlin with Coach Roberto, right? You guys, I saw you guys were dialed in. I mean, you stayed on track, and I think you ended up having a good day out there, right?
I had a PR by 1 minute.
Amazing.
And it was an 11-year-old PR, so I felt pretty good about that.
Amazing.
I've only run 3 marathons. People think I probably run 30 marathons because of my job. I'm actually really like a 10K guy. Maybe I'll stretch out to a half marathon. So a marathon's a big undertaking for me, but I was very happy.
So I'll leave you with this. What do you tell the runner? The story that we hear all the time. I hate running. I can't run. I'm never going to be a runner. I'm never going to be a marathon. The person that's scared to start, what do you tell them?
Well, I think there's 2 different things I might say depending on what their level of desire is, right? If they are like, I'm not a runner, never want to be a runner, never want to be a runner, I'm like, that's okay. You don't have to be a runner. Like, you can be physically active and get the benefits in other ways. Go ride a bike or do yoga or lift weights. Like, there's lots of great things out there. So it doesn't have to be running. But for the ones who I can tell maybe there's a little spark in them that they want to run, right? And I meet a lot of them here because they're oftentimes with a friend.
Yep.
Okay, they're like the supporter or the spouse or the coworker of someone running. And they say they're not a runner, but I can kind of see them like, I think maybe you want to be a runner.
Yeah.
And what I tell them is to go outside and run down the block, right? Or run 1 lap around a track in their neighborhood, right? And guess what? You're a runner now, right? You just ran. You're a runner. And then next time, okay, run a half a mile, run a 3/4 of a mile, run a lap, run a mile, right? And maybe take as many breaks as you want. Walk, then run, then walk, then run. And what happens is they start to run a little farther each time between those walks. And then next thing you know, they're not walking at all. And they're running a 5K and a 10K. And by the way, it's perfectly great to run a mile, a 5K, and never run more than that. You don't have to run marathons.
Right.
I try to tell people this all the time. Marathons are this huge business, and they're great, but you don't have to run a marathon to be a runner. But start small, bite off something you can chew, because, you look at the mountain and you think, I can never get to the peak. And you can't if you just sit there and you stare at the peak. But take that first step, right? The journey of 1,000,000 miles starts with a single step, and then see where you want it to take you.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, this was such a treat to have Rob Simmelkjaer with us today. He is so busy. He's got so much responsibility. For him to stop by and say hello to me, knowing that our pride and our passion, our purpose is mental health, just means the world. It tells me that we're making a difference. So, Rob, good luck this weekend. I know you're looking forward to your bet on Sunday night, but there's going to be a lot of magic that happens between now and then. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you for what you're doing. You're doing incredible work. I want to wish all of your runners the best of luck.
Thank you.
And I hope to see a lot of them at the finish line.
You'll see him, man. Flying the flag. Thanks,
Zach.
Rob. Good stuff, man. Thank you. All right, so our last little runner spotlight, sober journey guest is a brother of mine, a friend of mine. This guy is just a gem. Shawn McGowan, how the hell are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I'm just sitting here watching all these beautiful faces walk around this expo, and I'm just stoked to be a part of this community, this running community, and be running for Release Recovery on Sunday for my 4th marathon.
Yeah, 4th marathon for Shawn, and we're going to get into that. But I know the listeners here appreciate the story. So I met Shawn a couple years ago. We work in the field together. He works at High Watch Treatment Centers, which is doing amazing work up in Connecticut. They also have a program in Jersey now, and Shawn is really the glue there. Don't let his boss hear this, but he is like the guy there, making sure every patient gets the help that they need. 7.5 years sober. What was going on 8 years ago?
A lot of unmanageability, my friend. I was a tenured heroin addict, and for years I put my parents and my family and all the ones that loved me through heartache, and I didn't think that there was ever a way out, man. And March 17th of 2017, I entered into my 6th treatment center and finally surrendered to this disease and not trying to figure it out on my own. And I've been on that journey ever since, man. And it's been an amazing journey. It's been an amazing opportunity, and I'm just grateful to be sober today and to have the ability to be here right now with you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I'm with you. I'm looking around, and I want to talk about heroin, right? I want to talk about heroin because I'm a heroin addict. You're a heroin addict. People are probably looking at us hi, we got people waving to us. We got people walking around this expo, and they have no idea that we're two men in recovery. How did you end up doing heroin? What got you to that point? And how do we normalize it for the listener that heroin isn't like this deep, dirty word? Because we're two guys here that are doing great work in the world, and it's just part of our story.
Yeah, man. It all started for me. Athletics was always a big part of my journey, and I wasn't good enough to be a collegiate athlete. So I went away to college at 18 years old with a little bit of history of alcohol use and marijuana use, and I shortly was introduced to opiates. I had no idea what opiates was. I didn't realize we could have physical withdrawals from opiates. I remember a dorm mate in my college dorm referred to them as painkillers, and I had never heard that word in my entire life. And he was using them one day and looked to be enjoying them. And I asked him, I said, I want to try that, man. I want to look like you look right now. I want to feel like you feel like right now. And that's where my journey with opiates really started. And for a period of time, it was somewhat manageable. I got through college and until it wasn't anymore.
Well, that's the thing that people like. I think the common folk has a surgery and they take opioids and they're like, I got sick.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the opiates worked for a long time until they didn't.
Yep.
Right? So.
And I referred to as opiates as the universal drug, man. If I needed to get up and go to class, if I needed to clean my dorm, if I needed to go play athletics, if I needed to get the courage to talk to someone that I didn't want to talk to, it worked in every angle. And that was the only thing I had found throughout the 18 years of my life that seemed to work in such a versatility type of role. So I called it the universal drug, man.
Yeah. So you're in college, you start taking painkillers, you're kind of do you graduate college?
I did. It took me 6.5 years. I was on that plan, but eventually I did. I took my final exam after shooting up in the parking lot and going in and, eventually graduated 3 colleges later, but I got the degree.
So 6.5 years, you're shooting heroin before your final, but you get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So you graduate. In one hand, you have your diploma, and in your other hand, you have a bundle of dope.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next?
What happens next is, I was able to, with my skill set, kind of jump into the workforce and got introduced to into the professional industry of working as an adult, because that was what I was supposed to do. And I was fortunate enough to land a job at Coca-Cola North America, and I had almost 6 years there until they kindly asked me to leave. My drug use had gotten significant. The arrests started to pile up. I had felony possession charges and DUIs now. And there was no managing my job and managing my drug addiction. The drug addiction became full bore, and that was my daily commitment. How do I wake up every morning, get what I need to get, and I'll step over anyone to do that until it didn't work anymore.
When did you make the jump from like painkillers to heroin, and then using it, becoming an IV user?
Yeah, so I had gotten out of treatment for, I believe it was the 4th time. I went to a treatment center in Pennsylvania, and I was moving down to the Washington, D.C. area.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to some guys in the suburbs of Baltimore, and it was right around the time when oxycodone and Roxy's and all that kind of, and Oxycontin had started to phase out, and they just weren't as accessible anymore. And these guys that I met at this treatment center said, man, you can get the same feeling for half the price. And that's where my journey started. And I was introduced. I had already been an intravenous drug user via Oxycontin, but the heroin really ramped up as that was really the only thing that I could get.
Right. And that's, I'm happy you mentioned that, because when I think about my story, for me, the light really went on when I was lying in a hospital bed, and this nurse pretty much shot me up. She put morphine or whatever it is into my IV and hit the button, and all of a sudden I'm like, there's no way after a brain surgery that I should feel this good. And then years later I came back to that feeling when I found heroin. And I feel like it's interesting. I was out Saturday night with Blake and the boys, and we were at a cigar bar. Blake's a friend of ours. And we were talking to these girls that came over to us, and they were dressed up for Halloween, and they were very curious about our story and why we weren't drinking. And we went full throttle. We were telling them we're heroin addicts, and their initial reaction was, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I said to her, like, "Why are you sorry? This is the best thing that ever happened to me." And so we live in a culture where heroin is this dirty word, but people are dying. And it's one of my missions to talk to guys like you so that our listeners can hear a heroin addict who is now doing so much with their lives. So when do you finally, like, I know there's a lot of wreckage. I know you probably made a lot of bad decisions, some of which you might not be proud of. But when do you get that moment of clarity? Like, is it in that 6th treatment center where you just say, I'm done?
I was going to treatment in California for what I didn't know at that time would be, hopefully, God willing, my last time I ever have to enter into a rehabilitation center. But I was driving across the country with my 20-year-old sister, who was bringing me to that treatment center. And, this mental obsession of, like, I can't do this again, I don't want to do this again, was with me throughout the first few days of the trip. And I get to Salt Lake City, man, and like my brain and my mind and this obsession just goes in a different direction. Shawn, right? You can do this one more time. Shawn, you're going to treatment tomorrow, right? You deserve to do this one more time. And it was like that. I told my sister at the hotel, I said, I'm going to get a haircut, and I was out, and I was Googling where can I find heroin in downtown Salt Lake City. And this spiritual experience that I had was in this gas station in downtown Salt Lake City, right across from this park where I could have copped heroin. And I remember going in to get a phone charger, coming back out to my car, and I saw 3 homeless guys, and they were laid up against the side of the gas station. And I said, you know what? I can make a decision to go be with these guys and vanish off this planet. No one's ever got to worry about me again. Or I can drive back up this hill to this hotel, and I can go into treatment one more time and try to change my life. And I'm telling you, Zach, I said, I don't remember turning the ignition of that key. I don't remember putting it in reverse. But next thing I knew, I was driving back up to that hotel, and I went into treatment the next day, and I've never been in that situation ever again, ever since then.
Oh, my God. I got chills hearing that. And I love it because so many people share their stories. And, in our work in behavioral healthcare, there's great doctors and therapists and now there's medication-assisted treatment, and there's all different types of ways to kind of get sober, like as we like to call it. But sometimes it has to come from outside of us. Sometimes it has to come from the universe. And I believe that shit. Like, I believe that shit full stop. And I hate to think what would have happened if you didn't make that decision, or if that moment didn't happen, because the life that you've built and the man that you've become is not just inspiring to me, but it's inspiring to the world. So talk about that. You enter into treatment. How long are you in treatment? What worked for you?
Yeah, I was on the long-term plan, man. I was a short-term treatment guy. My college degree and my life experience always took me out of treatment because I thought I knew better. And I got to thank my mom, and we got to thank the families in this addiction, because I called my mom from that detox, and I said, Mom, I need you to take care of my car. I got all these citations. I need you to send me cigarettes. I need you to do that. She says, Shawn, I'm done. She goes, I've been on this bus for 10 years. I've hopped off the bus. Said, no longer am I going to enable this disease anymore, because I can't watch you kill yourself anymore. And my initial reaction was like, you're leaving me to dry. I'm isolated, right? I'm scared, and you're leaving me out here to dry. But like, that was the best thing that could have ever been sent to me. And to this day, I thank my mom, because without her, I still would have been running the show. And I woke up the next morning and I felt alone, and I needed to feel alone. And I dove into that 6-month treatment program, and I was corralled by people that loved me even when I didn't love myself. And that's where the journey really started. But that magic happened with that conversation with my mom.
Yeah. Is your mom still around? Is
She's coming tomorrow.
Okay.
My brother's running this race, and it's a family affair, man.
So beautiful. That's so beautiful. Shout out to all the moms. Shout out to my mom, your mom. They have such a hard job. There's no playbook for a mother, and most of my listeners are moms. They are women. They are people that listen because they're trying to find some hope. They're trying to find a reason to believe that their son can be the next Shawn, or their son can be the next Zach. And so I love that. I love that shout out. You do treatment for 6 months. When I think of you, I think of a guy who's fearless. Like, you don't give a shit what people think of your recovery, because it is the most important thing in your life. At what point did you know that you were not only going to get sober, but you were going to really build a life around this?
Yeah, it's when I really, got comfortable in my own skin, and I thank good sponsorship and a 12-step fellowship, because my recovery started out slow, man. I still wanted to do it my way. I was engaging in treatment, but I wasn't engaging in anything else. It was all about me. I wasn't about helping other people. I was the guy in groups who played devil's advocates or whatever the professional was saying. And I woke up like 62 days sober, wanted to kill myself.
Yeah.
I'd never felt that before. And I'm like, hey, I'm sober sitting here. I should feel better. But I'm not doing anything to progress my recovery. And my cousin, who had been 4 years in the program at the time, shout out to him, he changed my life, or at least was a part of it. He brought me to a serious meeting with serious guys and told me to get a serious sponsor. And I walked up to that guy at the end of the meeting, and I said, man, I can't feel like I am anymore. He said, call me tomorrow at 12:15. Call this AA hotline if you get loaded. I called that guy the next day, and that's where my journey started. That's where the journey of getting out of myself started. And from there, I've been on fire for recovery, man.
Yeah. It's so crazy, because it's the one thing on this planet where I believe the human beings that are most equipped to help people like us are the ones that have been through it. And that's similar to my story. Like, there's been people in my journey over the past 13 years who have lifted me up when I had no hope, right? And I didn't see a future. And so now you're in recovery, and you make this plunge to decide to work in the field. You're working at High Watch now. Can you tell the listeners, because you're someone that believes so much in the work you do, and I've watched you grown, and I'm excited to watch you to continue to grow. We need leaders like you in this field. Why High Watch? What does High Watch do? It's a treatment center in Connecticut. We work closely together. I admire the work that's done there. Why is that home?
That's home for me, man. I got the opportunity to visit High Watch in the summer of 2019, and as soon as I stepped on that campus, it's a spiritual place, but it's a place of community. And I know you're a big believer in community. I had never stepped foot. I had been to hundreds of treatment centers, both personally and professionally. And when I walked on those sacred grounds, this place that's been doing treatment since 1939, I felt this sense of community. I felt this sense of purpose. I said, this is where I want to be. And it took me about 7 or 8 months to land a job there. But I did, and I moved across the country, and I changed everything, man. And it's funny because we go back to this stigma of heroin addicts, and no one in this crowd right now could look at me and you and be like, you guys used to put needles in your arm. And it's funny because I wear, somewhat decent clothes to work, and I look professional and all that kind of stuff. And I'm still in direct care because I love direct care, and I love meeting with the guests at High Watch. And I tell them my story, or at least parts of it, and they're like, there's no way you used to shoot heroin. They think I'm an imposter sitting in that office. And sometimes I roll up my sleeves and I show them the scars on my arm, and tell them about how I used to put a needle in my arm every single day for a decade. And now I'm here just telling my story because that's our currency in recovery.
Right.
And it breaks the ice and allows them to feel in an environment that's supportive. So that's what I do now. I love it. I've been up there for a while. And honestly, I don't know that there's any other place that I'd want to be.
So when Shawn says direct care, that means he basically wants to work with the people that are struggling. He wants to work with the patients. They call them guests, which I love at High Watch, and I've seen it time and time again. This is a guy that will respond to your phone calls, will respond to your text messages any hour, anytime, because he believes so deeply in the miracles of recovery. And we're fortunate enough that High Watch is a partner, and we raise money for each other, and we do a lot of work. And Shawn's running his 4th marathon this weekend. Tell the listeners a little bit about why running, what got you involved, what have you found to be beneficial in your running journey, and what you're looking forward to most this weekend.
Yeah, man, running, I was not a runner. And the story goes like this. It was late winter of 2022. I was just coming out of a breakup. My depression and my anxiety were probably the worst it had been since I started since I got sober. And I remember kind of bringing some of that stuff to a colleague of mine at work, and who was a runner historically. And he suggested, he's like, why don't you sign up for running? And I looked at him immediately, and I was like, I can't run a marathon. I can't even run a half marathon. I've never run more than 3 miles in my life. And frankly, I just wasn't even interested in doing it.
Yeah.
And something hit me a couple days later. I woke up and I was like, I got sober and I can do hard things today, right? There's a lot of things that I didn't think I would ever be able to do, but being sober, I mean, I really truly believe I can do anything. And I remember texting him or calling him and be like, all right, man, I'm making a commitment and I'm doing this thing. And I think that's what the purpose that running has served for me so much, is the accountability and the purpose. A lot of what we do in recovery is about commitments. And every year when I commit to a race, whether it's New York City Marathon or Berlin last year, it's a 4 or 5 month commitment. And I feel accountable. And then, kind of second to that is the community and the connection, and sort of the remedy for mental health. It kind of hits all angles. And coupled with what I need to do for recovery, it's been the most amazing remedy that I didn't even know was available to me until I tried.
Yeah, I love that, man. It's so beautiful, and I relate, because it's just I'm running my 10th New York, and the times are great, and you train hard, but at the end of the day, for me, when I cross that finish line, I think of the people that aren't able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of the people that we've lost. I think of the people that haven't started running yet, or are in a detox, or in a rehab facility, and if they maybe see a picture of me and you, or hear this podcast, could find a little glimmer of hope that they too can do this. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we hope for. What is next for Shawn McGowan? I mean, you're going to run the marathon this weekend. What's your dream? What's your goal? What do you look to make of this recovery story that you're building?
I'm living the dream, man. I mean, this is the dream. If you would ask me 7.5 years ago if I was going to be sitting here with you doing this podcast, running my 4th marathon, I would have looked at you dead in the face and I said, you're crazy, man.
Right.
My family's taking the train up tomorrow. My brother, who's also sober, is running this marathon with me on Sunday. This is the dream. And I get to live it every single day when I wake up, and I get to be in the presence of people that I truly, truly care about. And I was doing chapel up at High Watch yesterday, and I did something a little bit different. I went in there and I talked about how they're my spirit animals on Sunday when I'm running this marathon. Not only do I raise money when I run these marathons for people that might not necessarily have the resources to get the help, but these people that are starting their journeys that think that there's no way out, I'll be thinking of all of them when I'm in the pain cave at mile 21 on Sunday, and that's for sure.
I love it, dude. We'll be in the pain cave together. I'm grateful that you came by today. I'm grateful that you shared a bit of your story. We'll do a little bit of a longer form next year. We'll get you in the office and whack it up. But we got business to take care of Sunday. And, yeah, man, 2 heroin addicts going out to run the New York City Marathon. What's better than that?
I love it, man. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to Sunday.
I love you, bro.
Love
Good
you
shit.
too.
Thank you, brother.